Back in 2016, Ford was getting absolutely roasted for charging over $40,000 for a Ford Focus. But then, people drove them. Then they started selling over 500 units a month because it was, quite honestly, the most fun hot hatch that's been produced to date.
Over the last handful of years, it's really no surprise that these older cars are becoming more and more appealing because all the automakers were forced to do what the government told them to do, making cars less engaging and fun to drive. So it's really no shock to me that this 10-year-old car still pulls in nearly its original MSRP in clean condition.
Hello everybody and welcome to Performance on Wheels. My name is Austin, my dad Todd and I, we make all types of different car videos on all types of different cars. If you guys would be willing to support this father-son team, please hit that subscribe button. You know, you guys have really been enjoying our older car review series recently. Actually, 97% of you have not hit the subscribe button. Please hit the subscribe button and support this father-son team.
The Ford Focus RS wasn't born in America. It was born on the rally stages of Europe. RS stands for Rally Sport, and since the 1970s, it's been Ford's badge for the wildest, most hardcore cars they built. The third-gen Focus RS finally landed in the US in 2016. It gave us 350 horsepower and just about the same number of torque, was a turbocharged hatch with a 6-speed manual, all-wheel drive, and it even had drift mode. It was built in Germany, tuned by Ford Performance. It was the hot hatch Americans had been begging for.
Even to this day, it is still known as the greatest hot hatch that any American manufacturer has ever produced, and they still hold a massive premium. And it's also one of the most powerful, right behind the GLA 45 AMG. Today, we check out the Ford Focus RS. Let's find out why Ford had canned this in the first place after its huge success in sales, why they still hold such a premium, and why this car had such a terrible reputation for poor reliability due to head gaskets. We're gonna dive deep into all of that today, right after we get behind the wheel and drive it. This is what the Focus RS is all about. The way that you can enter and exit corners is truly unbelievable in this car. Whenever you're driving this car aggressively, essentially impossible to not have a smile on your face. Between the engine sounds, between the clutch feel, between the heavy steering feel and the direct feedback, between the overall driving experience. The faster you go into a corner, the faster it wants you to go through it. It's just incredible the way this all-wheel drive system works to push you through corners, to make you want to go faster and have so much confidence in doing so. And when it does feel like it wants to step out, you can tell the all-wheel drive system does whatever it needs to do to correct itself. But the biggest issue is when I tap this button a few more times and take it out of its sport or track mode and put it back into normal, because this car is not forgiving. And when I mean not forgiving, I'm talking about the suspension. It is rough. It's a rough ride in here. For a daily driving vehicle, I mean, heck, to throw your kid in the back seat that's sleeping and have them not wake up when you go over the smallest little crevice in the road has to be pretty much impossible in this thing. I'm the type of guy that enjoys a stiff ride, that likes to feel everything that's going on in the car, but it's almost so stiff that I feel like it probably limits its own performance. It could probably be a bit softer and go around corners a little bit better. Now, not only did we bring along a completely stock Focus RS just so we can truly get the feel of what this vehicle is all about, we actually brought an additional Focus RS that just has some slight modifications on it, like a stage 1 tune, a cold air intake, and an axle back exhaust, just so we can see if those modifications are worth it. Now, I'll be honest, this exhaust is a little bit too drony for me, but let's see what the stage 1 tune does. I'll be honest, it doesn't feel any different at all than stock. Now, that phenomenal driving experience is thanks to this 2.3 liter EcoBoost 4-cylinder that quite honestly had a very poor reputation as soon as it came out. And we're going to dive deep into what exactly happened during the manufacturing process to cause such a massive head gasket failure which made these very scary to own outside of warranty on the used car market. A lot of people were very nervous about these cars. And let's just talk about what exactly happened here. So a lot of people think on the used car market that this 2.3 liter is the same 2.3 liter that is shared in the EcoBoost Ford Mustang. However, they would be wrong, as it only shares a few parts. Those parts being the crank, the pistons, and the rods, all were shared with the EcoBoost Mustang. However, the block and heads were entirely different. But there was a massive mistake during manufacturing.
Whoops.
This guy better have gotten fired. The block and the head for the Focus had different places where coolant ran around the pistons that ultimately helped keep the engine cool that the Mustang did not have. So the internals of basically where the coolant was running was entirely different. So when they accidentally put all of the Mustang 2.3's head gaskets on the 2.3 that was for the Focus RS, which had different spots where the coolant was being sent, it was kind of a massive issue. Water was being sent in places that it was not supposed to be being sent, causing the head gasket to ultimately explode once it started to boil in these areas that there wasn't supposed to be coolant, causing it to explode, causing heads to warp, causing the heads to explode, causing the engine to hydrolock. Ultimately, this gave the 2.3 from the Focus a massive unreliability reputation right off the jump because of this major manufacturing defect that ultimately led to a huge recall, making all 2016 and 17 head gaskets to be replaced, as well as heads on a lot of models. You need to check the VIN numbers when you're shopping the used car market on this, because this is kind of a massive ordeal. And if this recall somehow didn't get replaced, you just could be in for a bit of a headache.
I think it's fun to check out where the market is with the Focus RS and any car we're making a video on for that matter. So what I did is I hopped over to Auto Trader, did a nationwide search of the Focus RS, and what I found is there is 111 units available while this video is being produced. And what's crazy is the market went anywhere from $11,000 all the way up to $45,000. There's even a 250,000 mile Focus RS that's for sale right now. But what I did find interesting here is that there was a handful that were under $20,000, all of which had over 100,000 miles. Now, the other great hot hatch of the modern era, which I always confuse the fact that it's actually a hot hatch, is the Civic. We were able to check out both the current generation and the generation that was out when the Focus RS. And what's silly is when you go on Auto Trader for the Civic, 120. So almost the exact same number for sale across the country. The difference there is the cheapest Civic is in the low $20,000 range, so about a $5,000 to $8,000 difference, but goes all the way up to that $45,000, $50,000 mark. And those are, like, in my opinion, the two great hot hatches of the current day.
I do totally agree, and if you want to experience a fantastic hot hatch, the Ford Focus RS, be sure to check out these two units that are both available at Apple Ford Apple Valley here in Apple Valley, Minnesota, and huge thanks to them for allowing us to use both these vehicles for this video. Just before we talk about our interior experience, there's one other reason that you should pursue a 2018 over a 16-17 model year car, and that is because of comfort, but not necessarily because of the seats we are sitting in, because those carry over, but because of the dampers. These are such stiff cars. I enjoy a stiff car, and this car is over the top stiff. Like, you feel every crevice in the road, and it's just rigid, it's rough, but it can be a lot of fun as well. However, in 2018, they listened to the customers, and they really softened up the dampers to make it a more enjoyable car to drive, because even in the normal mode, it's almost unbearable at times.
Yeah, I agree, and this is completely sport focused, right? So we have the Recaro seats, and they hug you.
They do.
Like, they are extremely aggressive. Outside of the seats, which are remarkable, I mean, they look really cool. They have the blue stitching on them. It says RS in blue, and that blue theme does carry through. Is that like Ford blue? I'm not sure.
Ford Performance, absolutely.
Could be. So we have some stitching on the doors. The insert color, the engraving that's on top of the shift knob is blue. That's kind of fun, but it's just a Focus at the same time. So that's always the struggle when you get into, even the Civic Type R, we had similar comments. Nice place to be, really focused, like cockpit forward, but it's really plasticky at the same time.
It is plasticky in here, and it's a little bit of a downgrade if you're talking about a $40,000 car. However, especially in 2016, I should say. However, I do really like it in here. It's significantly more driver oriented than you would think, being just a Ford Focus, because we have this awesome flat bottom steering wheel that has fantastic grab points and it's very grippy in the hand. The shift knob's in a much better position than it looks like it is. If you look at it on video, it looks so awkward, but when you're actually using it, it's right where you want it to be. I understand that we're in a day and age of screens and getting away from the analog dials, but I love the analog dials in here. We just have a big old tachometer on the left and the speedometer right on the right with our cool like analog gauges that are up on top of our dash showing our boost, oil pressure, oil temp. I just think they are so sweet. And we just have the smallest amount of technology right in between them, which I think is perfect. I just think it's a great tie into everything that you need. Now in the 16 and 17 model year, it did not have Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. You are just stuck with the sync system, where in 18, I believe it was just a plug and play. You have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but there are some dongles and whatnot you can use to manage to get it in these older cars. I would just get that and I would never use the sync system. It's the same as it is in every other Ford. It's usable, but it's kind of pointless at the same time. It is just a nice spot to be. The piano black, I think, was a poor touch up here because you can clearly tell it's scratched on these two examples, but other than that, it's just a Focus, but it is a well driver-oriented Focus. You know, I feel great as a driver, but there over in the passenger seat, you're just sitting in plastic party from the door panel, the dash, everything, but it is driver-oriented over here. I have some cool drive modes, the heated seat, the heated steering wheel, because we are in the RS2 models, and yeah, it's a nice spot to be. I could be in here for a long period of time. The seats might get sore after a while, but all in all, great car for a track day.
At the end of the day, you are still paying a premium. You can get a C6 Corvette or many other enthusiast-driven cars that are much more high-oriented performance cars than the Focus RS, but you are paying a premium for a few things other than the rarity and the specialness that the RS has. And that's practicality. Let's touch on that really quick. So I'm 6 feet tall. I'm not all the way back, but I'm almost all the way back in the front seat, and I'm not super comfortable when it comes to being away from the dashboard, my legs being able to stretch out. Now let's see if you're trying to sell this to the old lady here and make this the practical car of the family, meanwhile getting yourself a toy. Is it even practical to get 4 adults in here? And I tell you what, I don't know if I'd want to be the person in the back seat. It's really nice and convenient that they have that indentation in the seats, but I am crammed against the back of the seat. Sure, I could go forward a little bit more. And if I can get my feet out without tripping, let's take a peek at the trunk quick. And what we find when we're back here is why you gotta love a hot hatch, because you can take the tray out, you can put the seats down, you have a good amount of cargo space. When all that is in place, because of the steep slope of that rear body line, there's not a ton of room back here, but the fun is that if you need it, you can really get a lot of space by putting the seats down. A few of the things I love about the Focus RS is some of the styling cues. That big aggressive front end, it's straight up and down, it's got that fun bar across it. You get around back and you have that big aggressive spoiler that has RS engraved in the side of it, and I really love the look of that lower valance, the rear diffuser out back with the big dual exhaust tip, and when you have the mud flaps on there, that's where you just really have to appreciate the Focus RS, because it's paying heritage to the fact that this thing's all-wheel drive, and where it came from is the Rally division. However, I find myself struggling a little bit. The performance numbers are so minuscule different between this and the Type R. This is faster, by the way. We're talking a sub 5, 0 to 60, about a 3.1, 3.5 quarter mile. The Type R Civic is a little bit slower, within about a half a second. The Type R, however, despite being front-wheel drive and not all-wheel drive, does pull over a G around the lateral acceleration when it comes to having grip. This is a little bit under a G, just a smidge. So ultimately, you think that the Type R is a more fun, track-oriented vehicle to drive. It does have the reliability of that Honda nameplate on it, which is appealing. It does have better gas mileage, closer to 30 miles per gallon, versus about the mid-20s per gallon on the highway. But here's the kicker, Austin. You've driven both. You've driven the Focus RS numerous times. You've driven both generations of the Civic Type R. You have never come out of driving the Civic Type R saying, I want to buy that car. Every time you have driven a Focus RS, you call me and you're like, yo, Dad, I'm going to buy one of these. I love this thing. You have said that every single time, including today.
I think the biggest reason for that is the Twinster all-wheel drive system. It's just that good. Now, its competitor over at Volkswagen still uses the plain old boring torque vectoring, right? The torque vectoring where it breaks the inside wheel and helps you turn into a corner a little bit harder. We actually just recently got that on the Maverick Lobo. They actually use that system on this car too, but there's some additional items that go into it as well. See, yes, the Civic Type R is fully front wheel drive and it is fun in the corners, but there's something about the feeling that you get putting this car into a corner that there's not many vehicles that I've experienced this in. It's one of those things where the faster you go, the faster it wants to go around the corner. It's a hard thing to truly express until you can truly experience it behind the wheel. Because the way the Twinster all-wheel drive system works is it can send up to 70% of the power to the back wheels. The Focus RS is still very front biased, just like its little brother, the Focus ST, which is completely front wheel drive. However, when it does send 70% of the power to the back wheels, it has the availability to send 100% of that 70% of power to one of the outer wheels of the two. That's how it uses its drift mode, by essentially, playing around with its all-wheel drive system, sending power to the wheels to make the back end slide around. And it also uses that to kind of allow you to not slide out and counter steer the act. But when you're in track mode, it does the opposite. It sends more power to the inside and outside wheel and kind of twists them differently and sends power differently to help you grip into a corner, unlike many cars that I have driven. It's just such a clever all-wheel drive system. Throw the little pops and bangs on deceleration into it. You throw that great 6-speed manual transmission that has a fantastic notchy feedback and a really fun driver-oriented sitting position. I just love the feeling that I get behind the wheel of the Focus RS. It's such a fun car, and it's a very challenging car if you live near a twisty road to not smile while driving. Now, it may get boring in a straight line now and then, but when you're able to put this car into a corner and experience a good S-curve, it's hard not to appreciate what Ford did when putting this car together. The Civic Type R is fun. I just feel like the Focus is more rewarding to drive.
Yeah, very well said. Comment down below what your favorite hot hatch is. Are you a big fan of the Focus RS? Would you go over and buy the Civic, or is there another hot hatch out there that has your name on it? Thank you so much for tuning in to Performance on Wheels today. We'll see you in the next video.